The Slack channel wasn't hidden. It was just renamed Geeker Ops Lounge. 2 words, 17 members, no description. It sounded harmless, like a place where sarcasm and caffeine lived together quietly after hours. It was a Friday night when I found it, 9:43 p.m. To be exact. The building was half-lit, a skeleton of fluorescent tubes humming like tired insects above empty cubicles. Somewhere on the lower floor, a janitor's cart squeaked across linoleum, the sound echoing off the glass partitions. Outside, the city pressed its face against the windows. Chicago in November. Rain, glass, red taillights dragging across the river like slow-moving fire. If you stayed late enough, you could feel the heartbeat of the building slow down, the HVAC sighing, the elevator lights dimming, the screens going into sleep mode one by one. And then there was me. Still awake. Still here. My name is Lucas Reed. I'm 38, operations lead at Midwest Logistics. 7 years in this building, 3 reorganizations, 2 CEOs, and 1 long education in silence. Operations is supposed to be invisible. If you do your job perfectly, no one notices. If you fail, everyone does. That's the rule. My desk lamp flickered once, then steadied. The light fell on the open spreadsheet I'd been tweaking for hours. Cost metrics for Q4, 314 rows, each one a tiny truth waiting to be ignored. Numbers never lie. They just wait for people to. When I clicked on Ops Lounge, I wasn't expecting to find my name. I was looking for a logistics request. Calvin said he'd posted there earlier. A vendor confirmation or something routine. Instead, the first line read, Lucas's leadership style, Excel sheets, and existential dread. 22 laughing emojis. The next one, he probably dreams in pivot tables. Then another. Only when he's not auditing his conscience, and then I scrolled. 247 messages. 231. Mentioned me by name. There was even a pinned post, titled Reed's Rulebook, 12 Commandments. Rule. Bear one. If it's not in Excel, it doesn't exist. Rule number 4. Never trust happiness without a spreadsheet. Rule number 9. Smile only in Q4 and below. Someone had commented, Rule number 13. Reserved for his next mistake. 87 laughing reactions. The author? Calvin Lewis, Assistant Manager. My protege. He was 31, good-looking, fast-talking, the kind of man who could make incompetence look like charm in a meeting. I had mentored him, wrote his promotion review, introduced him to the director as the future of operations. Apparently, he believed me. The further I scrolled, the more creative the mockery became. Memes with my face, photos from the office Christmas party, captions like Legacy Ops, Legacy Mood. They'd even recorded a voice clip. Calvin imitating my monotone. Team, let's stay consistent. Data integrity first. Then laughter. Then a voice saying, he'd probably correct God's math if he could. My hand didn't shake. It didn't have to. The shock wasn't hot. It was cold. A kind of mental freeze that happens when your trust finally runs out of room. On the glass wall next to me, my reflection stared back. The man in the glass didn't look hurt or angry. He looked like someone conducting an autopsy on his own career angers. Too loud for offices like this. Noise draws attention, and attention, the wrong kind, and is just another weapon. So I didn't type anything, didn't reply, didn't screenshot. I just looked at the timestamps, 'cause every joke had one. Every emoji, every line, digital fingerprints that didn't know they were evidence. At 10:08 p.m., I closed the laptop. The sound felt final, like the click of a courtroom door, and I whispered to the empty room. So this is how fairness ends. Not with a lie, but with laughter. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was angry, because I understood something new. In modern offices, reputation isn't earned through performance anymore. It's maintained through perception, and perception is a networked thing, shared, forwarded, pinned, reacted to. A whisper that becomes a file. Monday arrived gray and deliberate, the kind of morning that smells like burnt coffee and copy paper. The greetings in the hallway were shorter. No eye contact, just muted smiles, nods that meant nothing. At 9:11 a.m., Calvin passed my desk. "Morning, Lucas," he said, tone effortless, as if the weekend hadn't happened in pixels. "Morning." He stopped, looked at my monitor, then added, "Hey, I shared that data set you made. The director liked it." "Which data set?" I asked. "The cost efficiency one. You're okay if I reference it in the deck, right?" I nodded. "Sure." He smiled like someone getting away with it for the first time. By 10:17 a.m., the staff meeting began. Conference room 3B. Cold air, stale coffee, 10 chairs, 12 egos. Calvin stood near the projector. His deck, my formulas, my table structures, even my typo in cell D42, the one I'd left as a marker. He spoke fluently, hands confident, eyes bright. "By optimizing warehouse routing, we've improved turnaround time by 8.4%. This model," he clicked to the next slide, my slide, "was built collaboratively by the team." Applause. Soft, bureaucratic applause. The director said, "Excellent work, Calvin," then turned to me. "Lucas, make sure we get those numbers into the final report." I said nothing. There's no defense for theft when everyone's pretending it's teamwork. When the meeting ended, Calvin clapped my shoulder. "You're the best, man. Couldn't have done it without your system." He walked away before I could respond. I didn't want to. That night, 11:52 p.m., I opened Slack again. The jokes had evolved. Not meaner, just more subtle. Cleaner. Like predators learning to camouflage. Legacy ops, finally, unplugged. Calvin's bringing innovation to the museum. Innovation? I smiled. The word had lost meaning years ago. I created a folder on my desktop. Ops log, ref. No screenshots yet, just a place. Because every reckoning needs a home. Inside, I made a single text file. October chew chat chew records.txt. Then, on the next line, I wrote one sentence. They think they're joking. Thursday came with sunlight that felt dishonest. The office windows glittered, pretending everything was fine. But even light has layers. Sometimes, it exposes more than it warms. I watched Calvin from my desk, the way he laughed with HR, the way he leaned over someone's monitor, pretending to help. He had learned how to perform competence and how to weaponize charm. At 2:14 p.m., an email came in. Forwarded from Calvin Lewis. Subject: Weekly Ops Update. I opened it. The attached file was my spreadsheet, my formulas. But the author tag said, "Created by C. Lewis." That was the moment I stopped feeling surprised. I'd reached the still point beyond anger, a strange kind of calm where clarity begins. That night, I wrote a note in my book. Every unfair act starts as an oversight. Then it grows legs. By Friday, the jokes had already changed rhythm. They weren't playful anymore. They were careful, selective. That's how people behave when guilt starts. Whispering louder than humor, I began arriving. Earlier, before sunrise, before witnesses. The office felt different at that hour. No chatter, no footsteps, just the hum of machines, low, constant, the way truth sounds before anyone edits it. At 6:52 a.m., I logged in. The screen came alive. Blue light, icons, the sterile beauty of data waiting to be dissected. On the corner of my desktop, The folder Ops Log Ref blinked faintly, a quiet heartbeat. I renamed it Audit Prep 7421. It wasn't about hiding. It was about intention. That morning, the sky outside the 19th floor was gray. No sunrise, just light without color. I liked that. Neutral light doesn't lie. By 7:13 a.m., I began the audit. Not for the company. For myself. I started with the internal Slack logs. Every message has a shadow, metadata, timestamps, IPs, user IDs, edit trails, device types. People forget that humor online is stored with the same precision as truth. I exported the message histories from Yerk Ops Lounge, filtering by author, the spreadsheet, filled itself line by line. Each cell, another thread of the web.calvin's name appeared 86 times. 12 others had joined the laughter. 8 had attended the meeting where he presented my work. Patterns don't lie. They just wait for someone patient, enough to see them. Around 9 a.m., people began arriving, one elevator at a time, one conversation at a time. The normal rhythm resumed, keyboards clacking, printers groaning, coffee machines sputtering out caffeine and small talk. The air filled with that half-cheerful tension of corporate life. Smiles rehearsed, voices slightly higher than sincerity. At 9:02 a.m., Calvin appeared. He walked past my desk, latte in hand, humming something upbeat. "Working early again?" he said. "Always," he smirked. "You should take a break." I looked at him. "I will. Once the system's clean," he laughed, not understanding the precision of what I'd just said. He walked away, leaving the faint scent of his cologne behind. Expensive, assertive, temporary. By mid-morning, I went down to IT. No one questions you if you look like you belong. Clipboard in hand, badge visible, walking with purpose. The server room was cold, humming with quiet authority. Rows of blue lights blinked like disciplined soldiers. "Morning," I said to the tech at the desk. A kid, maybe 25, with headphones half on. "Morning," he mumbled. "I'm cross-checking some logs for compliance pre-audit," I said. Showing him my badge, he nodded immediately. No suspicion. "Just reflex trust in hierarchy. Sure thing, what do you need?" "External access records." 2:45 to now, he handed me a drive. "Careful, the data's heavy," I smiled faintly. So is truth. Back upstairs, I plugged it in. Thousands of entries. Timestamps. Usernames, IP addresses, session lengths. Within minutes, I found them. Multiple access points linked to C. Lewis. One on October 23rd, 9:57 a.m. Another at 10:03 a.m., the exact minute the deck was modified. The same proxy pattern. Remote, internal route masked as local. He'd been clever enough to lie, but not disciplined enough to erase his trail. Charm often forgets to clean up after itself. I created a new folder, Proof UD2, added screenshots, metadata tables, and Slack excerpts. Then Proof 03, email headers. Proof 04, server logs. Each small, less than 200 kbot, but in offices like ours, power isn't loud, it's archived. At 11:42 a.m., I opened my notebook. I wrote a single line. The quietest man in the room usually owns the loudest evidence. The next few days blurred into ritual. Work, collect, observe, record. Every action became deliberate, every silence tactical. At lunch, I sat alone, same table by the window, same black coffee. I wasn't hiding. I was listening. Offices have frequencies, voices, laughs, keyboard rhythms. When those patterns change, something's coming, and I could feel it. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Calvin's smile began to strain at the edges. Once, I caught him checking my screen reflection in the glass divider behind me. Fear, like guilt, has a way of checking for witnesses. That Friday, at 8:46 a.m., a message pinged on Slack. From HR. Please submit Q4 operations data to compliance by end of week. Audit prep. I stared at the line for a moment, then smiled. The word audit never sounded so personal. By 8:29 p.m., I finished assembling everything. Proof 01 through Proof 04. The entire structure of deceit compressed into one zip file, 3.4 MB smaller than a single PowerPoint. I opened Outlook, typed a new message, to corporate.compliance, midwestlogistics.com, subject, audit request, irregular, data access logs body, requesting verification of discrepancies in modification timestamps within operations shared. Folders attached, initial evidence for review. L. Read, no emotion, no accusation. Just data. I attached the zip, read it twice, then clicked send. The sound was small, but in that sound, something shifted. I turned off the monitor. The reflection on the dark glass showed me standing there. Still, composed, no victory, no rage, just a man reclaiming accuracy. When I left the building, rain had started again, soft, fine, persistent. The security guard nodded as I passed. Late again, Mr. Reed. Almost done, I said. Outside, the air smelled like wet pavement and fluorescent light. I walked to the parking lot, unlocked the car, and sat for a while without starting it. Silence. Once a punishment had become strategy, and somewhere deep inside that silence, I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. The weekend came, quiet and gray. I spent most of it in my apartment. Small, neat, overlooking a railway line. Every 15 minutes, a train passed by like time-keeping score. I cleaned the kitchen, organized old files, and wrote in the notebook again. Anger burns fast. Documentation endures. They used laughter as a weapon. I'll use accuracy as armor. Justice doesn't need an audience. Just a timestamp. By Sunday night, I slept better than I had in months. Not peacefully, but purposefully. Monday arrived with its usual mechanical rhythm. But this time, people were cautious, a softness in their greetings, a delay before every sentence, as if words needed approval first. At 9:17 a.m., Calvin passed my desk. He didn't hum this time, just said, "Morning." I looked up, nodded. His tie was loose. His eyes tired. The silence between us said everything. That afternoon, the director called a meeting. For data integrity review. Calvin presented again. But something in his tone cracked. He stumbled over a number, corrected himself twice. Confidence gone, replaced by precision that didn't fit him. I didn't take notes. I didn't need to. Everything I needed had already been written. After the meeting, I walked by the glass wall outside the conference room. The hallway light hit the glass at an angle, revealing smudged fingerprints, proof that people leaned there often, watching meetings they weren't part of. I caught my own reflection again. Quiet, composed, anonymous, and thought, maybe fairness doesn't disappear. It just waits for someone stubborn enough to keep track. By Tuesday, my inbox changed tone. Subject lines like, "Need your clarification," "Appreciate your accuracy," "Could you verify these logs?" began replacing the usual cold forwards. The same names that had ghosted me now copied me in every thread. Respect, it turns out, is just fear wearing good manners. I responded to each. Polite, brief, exact, no emotion. Professionalism is the cleanest language power speaks. That evening, I walked the office one last time before leaving. The desks were clean, screens asleep, everything humming quietly under fluorescent dusk. My steps echoed against carpet tiles that had seen too much indifference. I stopped by Calvin's desk. There was a half-empty coffee cup, a sticky note that said, "Call Director, Urgent," and a folder named Q4 SEER Final V2 Real Final. I smiled. People think naming things differently changes their meaning. It doesn't. It just hides failure under new labels. I turned off his monitor. For a second, my reflection replaced his desktop wallpaper. Me, where he used to be. Not poetic, just factual. Then I whispered, "Not to him, not to anyone. The cleanest revenge is continuity," and walked away. By Wednesday, silence had evolved into something else, not absence, awareness. You could feel it when people walked by, when conversations shortened mid-sentence. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to slow, as if the building itself was waiting. At 8:09 a.m., a new calendar invite appeared in my inbox. Subject: Operations Audit. Immediate review time, 9:30 a.m. Organizer: Corporate Compliance. I stared at it for a long second. Then I closed my laptop, stood, and walked to the window. The city looked like code. Lines, grids, symmetry. If you watched long enough, even chaos began to look organized, and I thought, maybe that's what justice really is. Order that takes its time. The meeting was in room 5C, the one with the glass walls and the smell of old carpet cleaner. When I arrived, the projector was already on, humming faintly, washing the table in pale light. Calvin was there. He looked exhausted. Tie slightly crooked, shirt collar loose. He smiled when he saw me. "A weak, brittle thing, Lucas," he said. "Didn't expect to see you here. Why not?" He hesitated. No reason. The director entered, flanked by 2 compliance officers, both with tablets, faces neutral. "Morning. Everyone," he said. "No warmth, just procedure." "Let's keep this brief," the director continued. "Compliance has reviewed recent data inconsistencies in operations reporting. We'll go over findings, then discuss corrective actions." Slide 1 appeared. Title: Data Access Records. Q4 Report Modifications. On the wall, rows of clean white cells filled with timestamps and usernames, each entry a small truth. I watched as the cursor highlighted one line, modified by C. Lewis, 10:03 a.m. File path, Ops Performance, Q4. The room's temperature seemed to drop. No one spoke. Even the hum of the projector grew louder. Calvin cleared his throat. "That must be a mistake." The compliance officer interrupted. "We verified using system-level logs. It's accurate." Next slide, message excerpts from Dark Ops Lounge. The jokes, the memes, the Reed's Rulebook, names, dates, everything preserved in digital amber. I watched the room, not the screen. One by one, eyes dropped, hands fidgeted, feet shifted. When guilt has nowhere to hide, it hides in motion. The director leaned back. "Calvin, do you confirm these posts?" "They were jokes," he said softly. "Everyone was joking," the officer replied. "They stopped being jokes when you altered financial data." I didn't say anything, didn't need to. The wall was speaking for me. After a moment, the director turned to me. "Lucas," he said, "anything you'd like to add?" I looked at the frozen screen, the file path glowing faintly, then said quietly, "Every message leaves a trail. 5 words, that's all." The director nodded once. Duly noted. The meeting ended without applause. Calvin was asked to stay behind. I walked out through the glass doors, hearing the faint click of someone's pen breaking in their hand. Outside, the corridor was empty. Light from the window cut across the floor in long, perfect rectangles. I followed them step by step, like a man tracing the blueprint of his own redemption. At 10:42 a.m., I returned to my desk. The Slack icon blinked once. New message. From HR. Please refrain from any discussion regarding the ongoing review. I smiled. They were already writing the history of what happened, one sanitized sentence at a time. By noon, the building felt lighter, not happier, just released. People spoke softer, walked slower. When something ugly leaves a room, it takes noise with it. In the break room, someone poured coffee too fast and spilled. No one laughed. The following day, Calvain's chair was empty. A single cardboard box sat on his desk. A coffee mug, 3 pens, 1 plant, and a photo frame faced down. Corporate empathy is always minimalistic. The director sent out a memo. Leadership transition, operations department. It was brief, formal, painless, and somewhere between the lines, I could feel the company pretending it hadn't watched everything happen in slow motion. I didn't forward it, didn't comment, just added a line in my notebook. Silence is contagious when guilt has good posture. The following week, I noticed people start to reappear around me, not physically, behaviorally. The same people who'd once looked through me now greeted me again. Morning. Lucas, how's the new reporting model? Appreciate your help with that audit, I nodded, replied politely. Never long enough to make them comfortable. Forgiveness doesn't have to feel warm. It just has to be clean. At 11:04 a.m., an email from the director arrived. Lucas, compliance confirmed your data as the correct source. Effective immediately, you'll resume oversight for operations and compliance integration. Let's rebuild this department the right way. No congratulations, no ceremony, just transfer of power. Line by line, exactly the way I liked it. That afternoon, I walked past the conference room again. Same glass, same light, different atmosphere. The projector was off, but the faint outline of yesterday's slides still marked the wall, a ghost of accountability. I stood there for a minute, watching that pale rectangle and thought, truth doesn't vanish. It just leaves residue. At 3:01 p.m., HR called for a mandatory meeting. Entire department. Topic: Reinforcing professional conduct. We gathered in room 2A. The same people who had once filled the Ops lounge now sat upright. Hands folded, eyes front. The HR lead, a woman with a voice too gentle for authority, read from a policy sheet. No names mentioned, no accusations, just rules. When she finished, there was a pause. Not out of respect, but relief. People clapped once, softly, the sound of a company trying to bury a corpse under paperwork. Afterward, a few coworkers stopped by my desk. Good work. Lucas, glad that's over. You really handled that with class. I smiled, nodded, and went back to typing. Professionalism is my favorite disguise. When the office emptied out, I stayed a little longer. The fluorescent lights hummed above, steady and indifferent. I opened Slack Ops Lounge was still there, silent for days. Last message. Reed's probably watching this. I typed one emoji, then erased it. Instead, I clicked Archive Channel. Slack asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked yes, and the channel vanished. So did the echo. Outside, rain again. Always rain when things come clean. I walked home instead of driving. The air smelled of metal and honesty. Passing cars hissed across puddles. For once, I didn't mind the cold. At a red light, I stopped and looked at my reflection in a dark window. Wet hair, tired eyes, faint smile. Same man. Different silence. There's a peculiar kind of peace in not needing anyone to believe you anymore, because the evidence already does. That weekend, I sat by my apartment window with a black notebook and wrote the last few entries. Phase 2. Restoration. Professionalism isn't compliance. It's self-defense. Justice doesn't start with confrontation. It starts with keeping records. I closed the book. The paper smelled faintly of ink and rain, two honest elements. And for the first time in months, I felt something close to stillness. Not victory, not relief, just alignment. When Monday came again, I arrived early, not because I had to, because I wanted to. The office lights flicked on one by one as I walked past. Each motion sensor blinked awake like a witness nodding in approval. At my desk, the same folder sat waiting. Audit in Prep YA7421. I didn't open it, didn't need to. Its existence was enough. I leaned back, hands behind my head, and watched the skyline turn gold as the sun finally climbed above the glass towers. Chicago looked clean that morning, like someone had wiped its conscience overnight. I didn't expect applause, didn't want it. All I wanted was accuracy, and I had it. Justice, I realized, isn't a sound, it's a state. A quiet, balanced equation that no one notices until it's complete. The first Monday of December arrived like a verdict. Quiet, factual, irreversible. There were no announcements, no whispers, just a company running on a new rhythm, one built out of caution instead of cruelty. I walked through the hallway, hearing the difference in footsteps. Measured, polite, unhurried, people greeted me again. But this time the words carried weight. "Morning, Lucas. Hey, great numbers last week. Appreciate the audit." Checklist. It wasn't flattery. It was the sound of people trying to synchronize with integrity again. The office smelled of coffee and mild. A guilt. 2 scents that always travel together. 9:20 a.m. The director stopped by my desk. He rarely did that. "Compliance team just finalized their report," he said. I nodded. "Everything's resolved?" He smiled faintly. "Everything's cleaner now." He looked around before lowering his voice. "Truth is, Lucas, you did us a favor. Most people would have made noise. You made records," then he added. "We're planning to build a new internal conduct framework next quarter. I'd like you to lead it." I met his eyes. "I'll draft something balanced," I said. "That's why I'm asking you." When he left, the faint scent of his cologne lingered. Formal, expensive, unnecessary. I turned to the window instead. Sunlight hit the glass just right, creating a clean reflection of my desk. Orderly, silent, real. Over the next few weeks, the reform initiative took shape. New policy documents. Review. See, they even gave it a name. Integrity. First. I didn't laugh. I just made sure the guidelines included one clause. Short, surgical, deliberate. All informal communication channels used for internal discussions are subject to transparency and ethical conduct policies. A rule so calm, it could outlive all of them. A rule that carried my fingerprint. Hidden in plain sight, that was my quiet revenge. To build fairness into the architecture, so no one would ever have to fight for it again. December blurred into its second week. Snow dusted the edges of the city, softening everything that once looked harsh. The building glowed faintly under winter light, its glass facade reflecting a sky that finally looked honest. At lunch, I walked the perimeter of the floor, a slow circle, one hand in my pocket, coffee in the other. The desks looked different now, smaller screens, fewer decorations, quieter keyboards. People worked more, talked less. Maybe guilt had turned into discipline. Maybe fear had turned into professionalism. Either way, the air was clearer. At 3:47 p.m., a Slack notification appeared, a new channel. Ops Culture Reset created by HR. I opened it. The first post read, "Let's rebuild this department on respect, collaboration, and accountability." Below, One emoji, a single check mark, then another, then 20. I didn't react, didn't join, didn't need to. Some ghosts deserve peace. That evening, I stayed late. One last time. The office was empty again, the way I liked it. Outside, the snow had turned the parking lot into a pale mirror. The city beyond it flickered, small, distant, forgiving. I powered down my monitor. The reflection on the black screen showed a faint image. My face, the desk, and behind me, the faint glow of the skyline. It looked balanced. On the corner of my desk sat the same notebook, the one I'd started weeks ago. I opened it to the last page. The paper felt heavier now, like it knew it had seen too much. I wrote slowly, in calm ink. It ended exactly how it should, quietly. No speeches, no apologies, just the sound of systems resetting. Dignity doesn't need to shout, it just needs to persist. Then I closed the book. As I walked out, the security guard nodded again. "Long week, huh, Mr. Reed?" "Not long," I said. "Just complete," he smiled. "See you Monday." Always. The door closed behind me with a hiss, the sound of air pressure equalizing, balance restored. Outside, snow was falling. Slow, deliberate, unhurried, the way truth returns after a storm. Each flake hit the ground like a punctuation mark on a story that didn't need to be rewritten. I looked up at the building one last time. The lights glowed faintly behind the glass, steady, even. It didn't look like victory. It looked like maintenance. And that was better. That night, back in my apartment, I set the notebook on the shelf beside a small black mug, the same, one I used during every audit. Its rim was chipped, its handle slightly cracked, but it still held. Coffee still did its job. I smiled. Because that was the point, wasn't it? Things don't have to be perfect. They just have to hold. I turned off the lamp, let the room fade into half-darkness, and whispered the line that had followed me through every meeting, every silence, every spreadsheet cell. Revenge ends when justice begins. Then I slept, not peacefully, but correctly. That was my story. Proof that dignity doesn't need to shout to win. Subscribe to the Office Revenge Diaries for more stories of clean, quiet justice. Remember, revenge ends when justice begins.